Hey guys, welcome back to Chariot Palmistry. My name is Sulabh Jain, and in this video I'm going to be updating you guys my predictions on what I think is going to be happening in the month of October. And let's first start out by having a look at our September predictions, because we actually got a lot of them right. So I'll throw up a screenshot on my predictions for that month. The first thing I predicted was food shortages taking place. This is something that kind of flew under the radar here, but believe it or not, food shortages are taking place all around the world. According to the New York Times, there's a farming and food crisis happening in America. There's food crisis happening in North Africa, in Mozambique. In Australia, the country I live in, a place with lots and lots of farmland, the CEO of one of our supermarket chains is talking about food shortages. China is facing food shortages, and other parts of the world are talking about global hunger crisis taking place at the very end of this year. In fact, the World Food Programme is saying that the number of people who are facing a food crisis is actually going to double this year. This is something that's flying under the radar of a lot of people. Right now everyone's focused in on like the US elections and what's happening in Armenia and Azerbaijan. No one's really paying attention to this one for some reason, because my thoughts is that this should be all over the headlines on the front page of every newspaper. But this is happening in the background. So one of the things I asked you guys to do was actually to get long shelf life food and keep it aside for yourselves and your family should the worst happen. It is only just getting started. In the next couple of weeks and months, we're going to get more and more headlines like this. Basically, every continent on Earth has an area with a food shortage. And according to some experts, like the UN's World Food Programme, it's only going to get worse. So if you do have some of that food, don't eat it now that September's over. Save it up until you actually do need it at some point in the next, say, 3 to 6 months. That's going to be a bit of a godsend for you, especially if there's disruptions to the food supply chain or if just growing food becomes harder to do. My other prediction was that of armed conflict taking place, and I thought it would happen at around about the time that Mars went retrograde on the 10th of September. And one day before then, on the 9th, China and India got into a shooting match with each other once again. The Chinese said that the Indians entered their territory and started shooting at their soldiers. The Indians said the Chinese entered their territory and started shooting at their soldiers. But this is an ongoing issue here, and as I said in my previous video, this isn't going to get resolved anytime soon. We should expect, at least up until the middle of 2021, for this conflict to be ongoing. And in something that's a little interesting is that there's also been news reports of the Chinese attacking Indian satellites. So that's happening now. That's the stage the world's at. The other conflict that started up this month is Azerbaijan and its neighbor Armenia. Those guys are actually in a full-on conflict right now. And this is something that's just accelerating because somehow Turkey's got involved in this. Syrians are apparently sending their troops over as well. So if anything, I'm reading this situation getting worse. But the prediction for armed conflict seems to have taken place. I also predicted a stock market fall, and that took place. We predicted a commodity price fall, and silver, gold, oil, all of these had a big correction this month. And then we predicted a bounce or a stock market rise taking place, and we can see that on the chart over here. So going into September, I think my predictions were at about 10 out of 11 so far this year. At the end of September, we're sitting at 15 correct out of 16. So that's a pretty good track record. So what's going to happen now? So let's talk about where the energy is sitting right now and what I think is going to happen with the markets and the world and more so on after that. And this is going to be sort of a double-edged sword here because I can't give you a clear answer. See, previously throughout the year there were different planets vying for supremacy over the zodiac. At the start of the year it was Saturn, which was bringing fear to everyone. Then it was Jupiter, which was bringing optimism. Right now it is Rahu, sitting in Taurus, that's the king of the zodiac. And Rahu is a planet for deception. It's a planet that pulls the wool over your eyes and leads you astray and basically lies to you. There's one malefic planet for confusion, this is it. And this is a planet that just happens to be ruling the zodiac right now, especially after its transit into Taurus just a week or two ago. What that means is that I don't actually know what's going to happen to the stock market. It could actually be going up over October, it could actually be going down. It's there's too much risk to say one way or another. If the markets go up, it's not going to be because the economy gets better. It'll be because of money printing taking place. And actually that was one of my predictions from last month too. So we'll add that into the mix. But if money printing happens, stock market goes up. If there's no money printing, the stock market's going to go down. And especially with the US elections around the corner, we're just one Trump tweet away from a stock market fall, or one Biden statement from that happening as well. We've got to monitor this situation very closely, because when a politician can direct the stock market, that's a sign of manipulation. And when the Federal Reserve, through money printing and stimulus, can do the same thing, that's manipulation too. So both of these are what Rahu does. Rahu is going to confuse everybody and dumbfound everybody. And my thinking is it's sometimes best just to be on the sidelines to these. You don't have to be in the markets 24/7. Sometimes just stepping back and letting the situation sort itself out is the best thing to do. So I'm not going to give a particular prediction on if I think the markets are going to go up or down, or at least for the stock market, except to say the risk to reward ratio here just doesn't seem to add up at all. The other thing I should mention is when Rahu is in charge of the zodiac, it stays that way for only a period of about 6 weeks. So we've got 3 months left in this year, and I'll divide all of October, or the month of October, instead of it being like a 4-week period, I'll make it a 6-week period into the middle of November. Then I'll make the last month of this year from the middle of November to the end of December. So although there's 3 months left this year, I'm actually going to count it as 2, because there's 2 energetic shifts taking place. And we'll talk about that second energetic shift a little later on. But as per my predictions for this month, uncertainty with the stock market. I think there's going to obviously be continual political turmoil with the US. But Bitcoin seems to be the big winner in the middle of this month. Around about the 14th, plus or minus a couple of days, I think you're going to see a significant bump up in the price of Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies that follow it. The other thing you're going to notice is lots of political scandals taking place this month. And my logic for that is seeing the sun sitting in Libra. Now, whenever the sun enters Libra, it's always in a weakened space. This is one zodiac sign it just doesn't like. But Rahu, the enemy of the sun, is 6 houses away, or 8 houses away from the sun, depending on how you look at it. Both of those are malefic energy. So the sun, that represents law and order, it represents the rule of the government and things like that. So when that gets weakened, you're going to see weakening governments, and also, on the other side of that, scandals taking place. The other thing to look at is if we do take October as a 6-week month, that takes a confusion period to the middle of November, which is just on the other side of the US election. So we can expect more chaos happening out of the US. Although you don't need to be like an expert in palmistry or astrology to make that prediction, I think that writing is pretty much on the wall right now. So those are my predictions for October and into the middle of November. I want to talk about how the year ends as well, because that's where things get really interesting. What I think is going to be happening more so at the end of November is there's going to be a huge amount of money printing taking place, predominantly out of the US, but also at large around the world too. And as a result of this, we're going to see stock markets rise. We're going to see a rise in the price of gold and silver. Bitcoin price is also going to rise along with the other cryptocurrencies. The world's going to be flooded with this false sense of optimism. And it is a false sense of optimism, and I say it that way because it's only going to last about 12 months over most of 2021. Once we get into 2022, we get more chaos, and I'll make videos on that later on. And that, guys, is all I have to say in this video. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section below. If you want more videos like this, why not join our members section? For only a few dollars a month, you get a whole range of other videos just like this. Thanks a lot.